you get to go up there to the podium. Sorry. Yeah, and just hit the button, which I had not been doing. There you go. Thank you. Yeah,
Am I
there
good?
you go.
Now I'm on. All right. I wonder how many people actually watch this. So tens of people. So we just want to, I guess, renew our MOU, and so I don't know if there's any sort of anything that you need other than us vocalizing that we would like to renew that for soccer.
What's your name?
Stephanie Kaiser, Keizer. Yep, thanks.
So association's been through it. I know you've been coordinating with the city. You're all
Yes,
Okay,
we're just going to
okay.
keep it status quo for,
Okay.
I believe it's a year. Annually, we come up and renew.
Yeah,
Okay.
And what's on pages 30 and 31, that's the current, correct?
that's the proposed one.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I meant, the new one.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
So nothing's changed, we just did it last fall, right?
I think so, yeah. I do have a couple more questions, though, if you guys have
yes,
time.
please.
Besides that, there's some questions about, I don't know if we need your approval particularly on this, but we want to split some of our larger fields into two fields. That would be on the very south, like before the train track, where the JV team plays generally, and then back behind that, west of that. We want to make those into two fields. If there's no objection to that, I don't know if you guys care about that. If
Just striping.
it would be striping, and then we'll do just temporary goals over there just to add some space, because like our U9s, we have 60 kids, so we just need more field space. And then we didn't know if there was any discussion about creating fields on the southwest corner of McCarty Park. I'm assuming, when you go over the bridge, there's that picnic shelter there. If there's any discussion about adding fields over there, we were wondering. Okay.
So kind of, all right, any other questions?
Not as it pertains to that.
Okay.
One other question, though.
All right, fire away.
I think when Melissa and I came in the fall, we had talked about getting a beer license for our bash, and we had to come here and talk to you guys and then go to the city council. So we're looking at formally requesting one for September 13th. And then potentially, if you would remind me if we did food trucks, they each need to go get their own peddler's license. But do you need to do any approval for food trucks?
Yeah, the city council needs to approve
The food trucks, okay. And then the beer license, you guys
They
would need to
just kind of,
discuss.
yeah, they just like to hear our recommendation, or if we
Okay.
have any.
That we
Yeah,
can get to her.
stop into City Hall and talk to Christina,
Can I have a pen, Lee?
because there'll be, you'll need to get an application for, I assume it's a one-day,
Yeah, yep,
one-day temporary beer license.
okay,
And then, the city council will have a public hearing. So we've got some publication things. So the sooner you can get that in, the better.
okay, yeah, because I know there's a timeline too on that.
Okay, so three things.
Yes, sir.
So Devin, do you have any problems with splitting that field into two smaller ones that you can think of?
Do you need to run that by the school at all? Do they use, how many of the big ones do they use?
So they just use the one, that JV field that's closest to, like, the parking lot
Yep.
there.
Okay.
They don't use that back field at all. It's not regulation for them.
Okay. We're fine as long as we don't have to switch it once for the, not back and forth and back and forth.
Right,
Other than
okay.
that, no, we'll do whatever you guys want us to set up as.
Okay. Is there any more room at Pioneer to add practice fields? We line those fields.
Pioneer, you can move those however you guys want to.
Okay,
If you want to switch things around down there, that's fine also. Just let us know, we can help move those goals, or the big metal heavy ones, so.
okay, perfect.
Is
We
it-
just have so many teams in the fall.
Anybody concerned about splitting fields? No. So, all right, so I think if Devin's good with it, we're good with it.
Okay.
The Pioneer stuff, just coordinate with Devin.
Or fall, or,
Yeah, fall and ongoing.
okay. So, yeah, get those dimension stuff to me, sooner the better.
Okay, for Pioneer?
Yeah.
Okay.
That way we can quit painting them, you know, that field, we can just kind of quit painting it for now, and then we can just switch it around here at some point.
Okay.
Thank you. So, regards
I
to,
think that's the ones at McCarty. You said
Oh.
you striped the ones at Pioneer,
We striped
right?
the ones at Pioneer.
So she's
You want the
so
dimensions
yeah,
for McCarty?
You said Pioneer, I think you need McCarty.
Okay. Okay,
thank you.
perfect.
All right, so question number 2 was if there had been any discussion for an additional field at McCarty, and we've not, as a board, or talked with Devin about that. So we can certainly put that on our radar, but
Okay.
as far as any kind of significant expenditure for 2024, we kind of have all that planned already.
Okay.
So,
That sounds good.
So I guess all I would suggest right now is if there's something that the association's thinking, just start to advance that discussion with Devin so we can get it on our radar.
Okay,
And see what we can do.
And I think to clarify, you were talking about like where the picnic shelter is across that bridge there?
Yeah, that's the only other open space that would potentially be available. The rest of it is really utilized back there. But I know there's trees and whatnot back there, so I don't even know what size field you could put back there. Maybe a U9. I know, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Are they already utilizing the area north of the baseball field down there at McCarty?
We do for tournaments, but we don't for practice.
I mean, that's about the only other green space that we would have that somebody else isn't already using would be that area north of the baseball field there.
So I just would go back to the association and just to let them know that we're not opposed to thinking about it. We just need to know some of the parameters of what you guys are thinking.
Yeah, you got it.
So, and then question number 3 was the beer license for September 13th.
Yep.
I know we've approved those in the past. Anybody have any concerns with that for one day? No? Okay. All right, so I think that totally works for us.
Okay, awesome,
So-
thank you.
Yeah, once the app gets.
Once you go through the process,
Yes.
right?
We'll get you the app.
We're not opposed to it, but we don't get the final say.
Sounds
So,
good.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thanks
Do you
for
need me to
coming in.
stay?
So no, I guess so what we need to do is everyone's okay with the MOU? No comments from?
Yeah, we previously reviewed this, so.
Yeah, that's yeah. Anything else smart to say? No? Okay, all right. Have a good night. Thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to next item, which is Aspen Ridge Development Preliminary Plans, which was included in our documents, pages 4 through 22. Mr. City Administrator, is there any intro you want to give?
This is Mr. Russell Atkins. He is the contact lead person for the development of Aspen Ridge, which is the property south of Aspen Boulevard, south of the golf course.
Okay, thank you.
And he has proposed in his preliminary plans, which are included in your packet, some park area and park improvements. Take it away, Mr. Atkins.
Russell Atkins, 8304 South Timber Oak Circle. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, my name is Russell Atkins. I am CEO and partner, Christensen Development Partners. We are pleased to be presenting a project to be built in the city of Brandon. It's 93 acres that is currently in the county that would be annexed, rezoned into multiple uses. We're looking at 2 commercial corners, the rest residential. And that residential, different types of housing, from apartments to townhomes to villa-style homes, up to regular single-family homes. Roughly about 400 units, all depending upon how people come in with the site plans for the multifamily. What we're really excited about is just under 14 acres of land that we would propose to be a city park. In that area, we are proposing the installing of a splash pad, as well as 4 pickleball courts. kind of a nature trail, if you will, also through the 14 acres. Do we have a visual?
Yeah, it's on page 12 of your packet.
I apologize, I should have brought a larger rendering. Sure. Okay, well, I didn't want to stretch my luck there, Brian. So the 14 acres is there on the southern portion of the subdivision. There are some wetland areas there. Maybe, maybe not, all kind of depending upon how things flush out with the Supreme Court ruling and how waters of the U.S. are defined. But nonetheless, we're taking the more conservative approach and we're staying out of them, regardless of what they're identified as. But that is the area that we're talking about. The actual park area where the activities would be located, the package they've got, is that the most updated preliminary plan? Just under that particular active area. These sizes have been moving around as we gotten the streets in and all that other. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's closer to 3.5. I did take a look at a recent splash pad and activity park in Sioux Falls. It was 3.5 acres. There's more than enough room for what we're planning. I don't want to promise other things, but we are looking at more activity centers, just kind of depending upon how the costs come in for the splash pad and for the pickleball courts. You know, I did not realize how many different options there were when it came to pickleball courts. But we are looking at all kinds of things. Naturally, we'll be working with staff as far as how those are built, both now and what makes sense for maintenance long term. There's options for the sport court type pickleball court. There's the ability to put more of a rubberized membrane on the area. But we're real excited about it, candidly. And, you know, we've got a lot of interest in the development because of the amount of park area that we're putting in, or proposing to put in, as well as the activities that are there. And so I'm here to present that to you, ask questions, get feedback.
So what sort of obligations are you
We would be putting the parks in. No, we wouldn't.
It would be
Yeah.
turned over to the city, design the property, plat it, public facilities.
I'd prefer not to have an HOA that would maintain that. I would rather the city, much better at that, much more capable of that.
I don't think that there's, I mean, the only thing, anything was water for the splash pad, but obviously that's going to be running for the development anyway, so there's no additional needs for that or drainage or anything that recycles, I assume.
It does.
We had a preliminary conversation with Russell, and highly recommended that the water is recycled.
I guess I don't really have any specific questions, but I am concerned as far as pedestrian access along Aspen Boulevard there. You know, we've had multiple discussions of how to get a sidewalk down Aspen Hill across the bridge for pedestrians to get down the hill. If we're talking about adding 400 units in that area, I mean, we're going to have to address that issue sooner rather than later. We're going to have to, I mean, Aspen's a busy road. Are we going to do above ground crosswalks? Are we going to have stoplights? Are we going, I mean, those are just kind of some of the things that I can see that are going to cause issues when we're adding 400 units.
Yeah, they're conducting a traffic study right at the moment.
We've actually conducted the traffic study, but the 400 units that we're building are actually adjacent to the park. So as far as people accessing the park and things like that.
Yep, I'm just not necessarily for your, I'm just overall picture, because we're gonna have kids then that are in that development that are walking to the new high school, hopefully, or on a bike trail to the new high school. I'm just concerned from a city standpoint, not necessarily of a development standpoint, of kids on Aspen Boulevard getting across the road
Sure.
and that kind of thing. Really doesn't have much to do with your development, except I'm just concerned that we are not addressing a high need for that.
Tammy and I just talked a little bit about it this afternoon. We'll need to take a look at crossings at Country Club and Chestnut. And at least take a look at our RFDs, the rapid flashing things first. I could potentially see at some point in time, I'm not sure when the warrants would be met, but a potential traffic light at Chestnut. Depending on how things happen out there, what the warrants are.
And I have looked at the traffic numbers. They're fairly good for the immediate build-out. It's the future growth that comes down the way, and naturally, I think the concern's warranted. We are putting quite a few sidewalks in along Aspen, as well as the other, Chestnut and internal to
Yep.
the area as well.
Which I greatly appreciate, and anytime that you could do like a bike trail through the development or
Correct.
something like that is kind of what our goal has been in developments. Anytime we authorize a new development or look at new development, is putting in a larger bike trail for people to come. And like you said, you're doing the
Great, love it, yes.
through that. My concern is not with your development, but getting down Aspen and trying to figure out how we can get a sidewalk down Aspen Boulevard, past the development to the bridge, because that is going to be a need that we have to address.
And Tammy and I talked a little bit about it again today. We've talked about it off and on for a number of years. At this point in time, I'm not sure if there's a good alternative for that with those. Unfortunately, the city made that decision with those deep ditches back in 2004 or whatever, that it really created some issues with the location of the trail on Aspen. If you want to put it on the north side of Aspen, we don't have much room because of those ditches in front of the golf course. And an alternative that was talked about a while ago was to handle the drainage, put in 3 36-inch concrete pipes all the way down past the golf course and fill them in, which sounds easy enough, except you got to remember we've got a force main and water main in that ditch that would now be 30 feet deep. So there are some decisions in the past that
Well, the other concern is possibly widening that road with the traffic coming. I mean, making that a 5-lane instead of just the 2-lane with a turning lane at the golf course kind of thing too.
Yeah, there's some issues. The right-of-way isn't a major issue once you get west of Chestnut. I think it's 110 to 150 feet. Once it hits Chestnut, it drops down to 66. Why that happened, I don't know. And then you've got development already on the north side of Aspen that's going to prohibit expanding that right-of-way very much, at least to the east. So yeah, we do have some issues out there.
Well, I think,
At some point in time, Aspen's gonna have to be urbanized. Right now, it's a county road, so, our theory's always been, once we develop, we can start addressing those issues. We would like to, as one of the gentlemen from the Country Club area pointed out Monday, we should build infrastructure before development happens, which would be awesome, if we could. But I'm not sure of any city that's in the speculation business. So, once we get the traffic study, take a look at that, and as we grow further to the east, we've got the school going out there, we've got Chestnut Ridge, that's going north of the school. I'm not even gonna get into Redwood and Chestnut gravel road thing. So Aspen's, we're gonna have to do something with Aspen at this point in time. Once it's more under our control, we can take a harder run at it.
The railroad tracks are technically active, correct? And at least when they started parking train cars, I got the impression from the news at that time that there was no plans for those to become abandoned in the near future.
Their plan is to rehab those tracks into Minnesota. They will be bringing in primarily rock and gravel from a pit somewhere over there for Knife River. What they've told us is 2 trains a day, roughly 26 to 28 cars each. Now, they're also talking about with that extension of that railroad tracks into Minnesota, they would have access to the Union Pacific rail system, which is available here in the great state of South Dakota. Just perfect for there. So they may or may not bring in UP cars as well. We don't know. They just received a grant for track rehab, fairly substantial one from the feds. Haven't seen anything as to what they're planning. They've got a lot of work to do on that track to make it viable in Minnesota.
I know
Easier
for-
to make it rail the trails.
I know for a fact they're not giving up the right of way. So,
Okay, well, wishful thinking, sorry.
so I guess, thanks Mindy for your question about connection into the larger community. Has anyone got questions specifically related to the park, proposed park? I guess a couple things. One, ultimately, what are you looking for out of us, Brian?
Right now, it's just information.
Okay.
As we, thank you. As we move along, we met with Russ a month ago, roughly. So as we move along, we'll bring plans to you or concepts or ideas to get your thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. Just one preliminary comment that I had, Russell. Depending upon how in the park area you ultimately decide to lay out your trail, I know one problem that we've had many times over in our community with older/new developments is connections through the neighborhoods through those trails. And I know side paths after the fact are not always welcome, but when they're planned in between some of the lots, I'm just talking about like some of your cul-de-sac locations. And so if you live here, and unless you're gonna cut through your backyard, if you wanna access it at all from your roadways, you've gotta go over to this park space and into, right? So,
Well, we do a little bit more forethought than that, you know, and we've got some storm water quality control ponds that are being in the area as well. And as a result, we got pipes coming through. So when you got the pipes, you got easements. We got easements. You got the path, the ability to
Awesome.
have some connectivity to that area.
and again, I don't know until you have your trails what makes sense where, but
Sure.
I appreciate, that's good. That's awesome.
No, we do think about that. I mean, we do try to kind of put our mind's eye as builders and homeowners and live there. I've been doing this a long time, and nothing brings me more satisfaction than going back into subdivisions that I built decades ago and just hanging out, right, and watching all the activity. And you learn those things like, oh, people have to mow. They got to walk all the way around the street and mow the little strip that's along the deal. So
Yeah.
we try to do that. We don't catch them all, but I think I've been very impressed with staff here, and so I think, you know, working with them, I think we'll catch as many of them as we can.
If you look on page 11, kind of shows some of the easements going into the park that could be potential access points. You know, there's a 30-footer down at the end of that
Yeah.
cul-de-sac, South
Yeah.
Haley Circle. There's a 45-footer coming off of South Tinley Drive. There's another 20-foot drainage easement kind of on that curve. So there's some
I see
access
those
points.
now.
that could-
Yeah, that's nice. Come on, Brian, you know, I only look at the colored ones.
I
Look at the
know.
black and white ones.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Should've
no,
let
thank
you
you.
know that beforehand.
Thank you for that. That's good. And I just want to say, you know, obviously this size of development would most certainly, from our standpoint, have a park shortage area. And so your willingness to incorporate it into the development is fantastic. And at least I'm very appreciative of that because,
Thank
you know, clearly our community, we're playing catch up on a lot of our kind of park services and stuff. And, you know, you being ahead of the game is awesome. So thank you
Great,
for that.
thank you. I know the comp plan doesn't necessarily call it out here, but it is, you know, just right across Chestnut, and so we just thought we'd reach over and take it.
Yeah, that's great. So, any other questions or comments for?
So the preliminary plan, council approved it Monday night. Next step is annexation, which will take place, I think, on the 3rd, 17th of July. And then a rezone, I think the same time. I'd have to look. It's changed. It's a moving target.
Are we going back through planning and zoning with the annexation?
I'll take a look.
Okay, that's one of the questions I meant to call you on
Yeah.
today, and I ran out of time.
I'll take a look.
Okay.
So anyway, it's moving forward. The next step for them is obviously the park stuff, which you guys will be involved with, and then DEPs, which you guys really don't care about.
So,
Any guidance that you'd like to see, you know, as far as the position of the activities? You know, we got a blank slate in front of us, and so, again, we've reached out to Earthscapes. Chris is just a phenomenal designer. He actually did my house. Loved what he did. And so he's looking at some conceptual plans for us. And then we've also got some other companies that we're consulting with to get that. But if there's any hot buttons, if you will, from the committee, I'd love to hear them now.
And if anybody looks at that and you have an idea that pops in your head at 2 o'clock tomorrow morning, call you.
Call Brian, yes.
Call
Cobra.
Devin. Let him know.
So phase one, the tracks 1 and 2 are commercial, I'm assuming, the purple ones?
Yes.
And then there's a little L-shaped one?
That's the
That's
R3.
multifamily, and then what's tract 4?
I believe that would be the townhome area.
Oh, okay.
It's roughly 10.5 acres.
Yes.
And then
Get my
at the
bifocals
southeast
working.
corner, that's where the villa homes will be.
Okay.
They're slab on grade. We've already got a contract to purchase those and to build a villa home, which is a really nice setup. And
Are
we're
they
in-
age restricted?
They won't be age restricted, but I think by virtue
Okay.
of
I'm getting up there, come
by
on.
virtue of who will buy them, there will be
can't.
people of my age there. Yes.
I might want to move there if there's age restrictions, come on.
any non-age questions remaining? So, no, I don't think we have any specific requirements. We're curious to see what Chris comes up with so we can react to it and, appreciate your willingness to incorporate these improvements and the forethought and the development.
We're glad to do it. We're really glad. So, well, thank you all for your
Thank
time.
you, appreciate it. Okay, with that, we will move on to the next item, which is hockey MOU.
Yeah, it's not a memorandum of understanding, it's a memorandum of understanding.
Oh, an memorandum.
We got this from the attorney's office, so,
Ooh,
and I didn't read the title.
hello, Bus.
We will get a clean copy of
You
something.
got it by email, right?
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Tom Gurnick. I live at 1901 South Archstone in Sioux Falls. I'm the president of the Brandon Valley Hockey Association.
Thank you for being here.
We've been working with the city on this MOU. There's a couple little changes. Other than that, we approve it. If you have any questions.
Yeah, a couple of changes that took place in the original MOU that we had 6 years ago, from 17. I think we had a specific dollar amount of 1.75 million to be raised in contributions, which would trigger the next phase of the project. They've got 1.7. Obviously, like all projects, the price has increased. So the percentage, we didn't use a number this time of 1.75, we used a percentage of the project cost of 35, and then the other change is in paragraph L. It says the public use hours on ice offered by the association, however, shall be a minimum of 5 hours per week. Originally, it was 2 hours per day, but it's gonna be staffed by volunteers. So it's going to really depend on their schedule, and we can certainly go back. I think we can add language into the lease at some point in time that would increase those hours. You know, we don't want to say you got to be open 2 hours a day when there's no volunteers to run it, because I don't think the city's going to staff it. So those were the two changes from the draft.
And I appreciate that, and cutting it down to 5 hours a week is, I don't know, I think pretty reasonable when you consider, you know, the shortage of ice time and stuff that you guys are going to need for your program. So yeah, and the fact that it's staffed by volunteers.
Tournaments,
Yeah,
practices,
yeah,
so, we certainly understand that schedule is flexible.
yeah. And I'm just wondering, the whole volunteers, the Hockey Association is going to be responsible for all the volunteers for the public skate time? Okay.
That's how it's been worked in the past.
So and those hours may move. I think what we'll probably end up doing is getting a schedule from the Hockey Association that we can get out that, hey, the rink's gonna be open Saturday from, whatever, Monday or Tuesday. So it's gonna be flexible for a while.
And then, we wanted that flexibility of when we had ice too, because there wasn't anything in there saying that, because the first couple of years we'll probably have to pull the ice so we get more people involved and stuff, then we'll hopefully, you never know, so we're hoping, but that's the other wording was changed a little bit so we could have more flexibility with in ice, out ice.
And I know how it can be difficult in the volunteer organization, getting the people to do that and everything, but potentially, if there were hours that the facility was idle and the only reason it couldn't be used for open skate was lack of somebody from the association to man it, potentially we would have some other responsible parties who, would be supporters of open skate, might be willing to say, maybe on a certain day I could do a couple of hours or something. I don't know if we'd entertain that, but of course that would have to go through the Hockey Association. I'd still say have control over that, but you never know, you might find somebody.
Well, they could always do what baseball does, and you either pay $100 or you volunteer so many hours.
I don't know how many hours you have to volunteer during the stuff, though.
Well, hockey. All parents do it. Sorry, Adam, just anything else on that? Any questions for Tom? Mindy, you're just older. You had to drive further to do hockey. Yeah. No, super true. I guess, Tom, we appreciate your willingness to update the MOU and the association and kind of work with staff to come to a good agreement. So, again, we're very excited about kind of this starting to take shape and all your efforts to improve our community. So thank you. I know sometimes it seems very thankless. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. The other thing I was wondering, and it was going to be in the future, but if the project is moving forward to a point where we could start to maybe disassemble the other rink, we'll have to discuss that as well, I guess. That could be an option for more soccer fields, I guess, if whatever you guys want.
Yeah, and I would, I'd say we're always very adaptive to what your situation is.
Yeah.
And the first call you make is just to Devin to start to kind of coordinate what your needs are or thoughts are. So it'll be fun. So.
And did the Chase the Ace go out last night? I forgot to look.
No, it did not, I don't think. No.
Still got a chance.
Yeah. You're saying I have a chance. All right. Well,
One of the things
yes.
that come up in the lease and stuff, they will have a loan, they will have a mortgage. They don't have a mortgage on the property, just the building. So we'll have a whole different agreement between them, us, and the bank. Heaven forbid something happens and the bank inherits the property, we still have control over it because we're very concerned about, the bank's just going to want to sell it and get out from underneath it. So we want to have some control over what goes in there. We don't want them, plopping a manufacturing facility in there or something like that. So that's further down the line, but just to let you know.
So since there's no formal changes or anything, we don't need to do a motion to approve anything. We'll just,
Let's go through all of them. You can do them all in one
Yeah.
motion. just a recommendation to the council, because we'll have these on the July 3rd council meeting.
Yeah, okay. All right, sounds good. Anything else, Tom?
Oh, thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks for waiting.
You bet.
All right, that brings us to item number 8, Brandon Wellness MOU.
Still turned on?
It is.
Anyway, Mike Burks from Brandon Wellness. Pretty much ditto what Tom just said. I'm here to renew, we went through the city and revised the MOU, and we signed it, so we're happy with where we are. And, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than we need the MOU to keep moving forward, and things are moving in a very positive direction.
I like all the swag. Nice job.
Any questions?
The 30-year term of the lease, is that also the term of the MOU?
No, the MOU will basically, the MOU is there to lay the foundation for the lease. The term, all of those terms, the 30-year with the 5-year renewals, will be in the lease. Once the lease is done, this MOU will basically kind of go away.
It's the ground rules for understanding.
Yes.
Yes.
Any questions?
All right.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
One thing on all the MOUs, they all have different expiration dates. So we'll get those all consolidated to one so that there's less for us to remember.
All right, I guess with that, since we've been through hockey, wellness, and soccer, is there a motion to approve all 3 of those MOUs? Second?
I'll second.
Kind of going back to what I was saying before, there were no specific revisions, so any other discussion?
We'll tweak the dates. I think what we would prefer to staff is 1-year agreements, and then we can keep it in front of ourselves.
Yep, agreed.
1-year MOUs? Yeah, 1-year MOUs for everybody.
I thought we were doing 5.
Well, we are for operation stuff, but for the buildings, because things change. I mean, it's like the cost.
Yeah,
I
These are
think
different just for.
Gotta
these are
react
just
to
for the
that.
buildings and the leases.
Not for the organizations.
No, no.
So not for soccer, just hockey.
Yeah, just for the buildings that everybody wants to build. For instance, one of the reasons why we want to keep it fairly short is, I think when we first started talking with hockey, it was about a $3 million, 2.5 maybe. Now it's 4.7. So we got to keep up speed on that kind of stuff.
No, I think that's a good plan while the buildings are in flux, just because of the limited space down there too, and we don't know other things that can come up, so.
And once we get the MOUs through the council, I'm going to contact or have, Patrick is our contact now, Patrick Andrews. We've solidified, because everybody was talking to kind of everybody. So there was some confusion. So what we'll do with the associations, now that we're starting to get ramped up, we'll ask for how much space do you need, so that then we can start figuring out if we have enough space. And, where are we at with fundraising? Because that's kind of a trigger. So where are we at with all the fundraising and commitments there? And I know hockey's got a site plan kind of sort of developed, which includes the expansion of the second rink, so that we've got, so that we can mark off enough space. The associations will probably be coming into planning and zoning for variance on the parking lots, because our zoning code requires them to be paved. We don't pave our parking lots, so, I think there's justification there for variance, not to pave theirs until at some point in time. So stuff like that, and they've already got the application for that and the conditional use. P&Z, City Council just had the second reading on the definitions and permitted and conditional uses in the institutional zones. So they'll be restricted uses. Like I said, we don't want a retail outlet or something in the park. So that's all moving forward. That was all approved. Second reading was Monday. That'll get published next week. Other than that, I think
So this is, sorry,
No, go ahead.
so this is potentially 3 separate buildings.
Correct. So that's why we're gonna ask them, how much space do you need? So that we can start figuring out if we've got enough space for everybody.
Can they share parking lots?
Yeah, that's, you know, we're encouraging that with the retail, commercial sectors in town. We're trying to
Yeah.
encourage shared parking lots.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the site plan or the building plan that Wellness had, if you go by our current standards, they'd have to have like 800, 850 parking spaces. Well, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And I can't remember, you guys would have to have 120. So I don't think we need 1,000 parking spaces down there. You know, yes, if they're not paved, they're not gonna get 120 cars in there because everybody parks 8 feet away.
Like they do with baseball.
Yes. So we're gonna encourage shared parking spaces.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So, thanks, Brian, for clarifying those dates on that. That's in getting them in tandem, so that's good. So there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I would
Thank you.
I would love to take a field trip out there when we kind of know where buildings might
Yeah.
be, just to, I think it'd be helpful to walk around and still visualize what green space remains for, you know, flag football or soccer or additional ball fields or whatever.
Well, you know, the original intent to buying that 42 acres was expansion of ball fields.
Yeah.
So we need, even though baseball and softball don't have any solid plans right at the moment to expand, we still need to make sure that we have space for them.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's good to look at a drawing.
Well, I think-
I'd like to walk it sometime.
Yep, anytime you want to. We did, Brooke Horsemeyer, who's the foreman with Metro Construction, who's doing Rushmore, Phase 2, talked to me a couple weeks ago. And they basically hauled all of the dirt, the excess dirt from Rushmore down to Rushmore, or down to Aspen Park. And I think they've leveled it and as much as they can until we get final elevations. But, you know, that work has been done, some additional fill's been plopped. It doesn't fill in the hole yet.
I wondered what all that dirt was.
Yeah.
I noticed that driving on 11. I thought, what are we already leveling some land for a building? Or?
No, the Metro, our project had waste dirt that, you know, we usually have to pay to either haul away or buy if we need to fill. So this worked out. It was a short haul for them. It allowed us to get some dirt down there.
That's a good use of junk.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I
And
think,
then HDR should be finalizing the drainage study pretty soon. So we'll know drainage routes.
yeah,
Retention ponds.
and that's what I was gonna say. I think once we get a little bit more solid plans from the associations, that drainage study is complete, and I know Tammy's been doing some other engineering down there. I suspect what that will mean is that we should really relook at and update our master plan.
That
'Cause
DGR
there's-
is working on,
Yeah.
DGR is the hockey's engineer
Yeah.
who's doing the site plan, and they're well aware of the drainage. They're not doing the drainage study, but they are, I think they've
Yeah.
had communications with HDR, so they've kind of moved the building
Yeah.
around the detention down in the south end. We're not quite sure how much detention we're gonna have to have down there. We'll expand the existing pond, I think.
So, I mean, ultimately, and that's not unexpected, right? As you get more detailed planning, some of the bigger picture conceptual stuff needs to change. But I think that's where Brian's really touching on us updating that plan. We'll be able to look at the impact to the fields and what we really think makes sense. Because I know while baseball hasn't been here tonight, you know, certainly they've been vocal about needing fields sooner than later as well, and so making sure we're doing what we can to make all that stuff work.
So we'll start gathering some of that information in July. After the council approves the MOUs, we'll reach out and start gathering that information from the associations. How many square feet or how many acres do you need for your facilities?
Awesome. Thank you to staff for their hard work. Item number 10, Softball Association batting cage shed repairs.
Yep, I thought she was gonna come tonight, but this is just to bring it to your attention. They are repairing the old batting cage shed down there. They're putting new siding, I think they're gonna paint it. So it's just a, yeah, between B and C. Yep, so it's just that, they're not changing anything or doing anything else, just repairing existing, so just to bring it to everyone's attention.
Any suggestion on colors that I mean, if they're gonna paint it, just the parking? No?
Hot pink, yeah, okay, I'll mention that to them.
Okay.
So just on a total side note, I found out today that our company color, which is an orange color, which gets painted in our offices on a wall, that if you take the yellow out of it, it's hot pink. So just completely unrelated, but
You were to say you had extra paint.
yeah, no, we may have a gallon. All right. So item number 11, 2023 projects update.
Not a whole lot update. Obviously, tall grass, as you know, is completely done, so that's good. Everything else is still just kind of in the works. No real movement on any other project at the moment. I know Tammy said she is working on the pathways for Aspen. I'm still working with people on the Pioneer Restroom project.
So a couple questions or a couple things on tall grass playground. I know there's a couple public comments about a baby swing.
Oh, yeah, I got some ordered.
Okay, all right, thank you. And being that I live right up the street from that, once the yellow tape was pulled off of it, which was reasonably lived by, unbelievably, while it was up, yeah. I said reasonably. I didn't say completely.
You have names or pictures?
I did not. It sounds like Mindy might. It is, the quantity of people on that has been huge. I mean, it is.
Sunrise got done,
Yeah.
especially the turf, it was like crazy.
Yeah. I mean, there's been more kids on that play surface in the last 2 weeks, week and a half, however long it's been, than there were in the prior 2 years. So, and it definitely was noticed. I mean, it got a fair amount of social media play, most of it good, most of it, which I'll take.
All we need is 51%.
So kudos to you, Devin,
Yes.
on getting that done,
looks
and
nice.
yep. So great job.
Yeah, I was really impressed when we were there last week. It's beautiful. It's really well done.
It's just hot when it's super sunny, but
It's been 90 plus.
yeah, but we knew that.
The old teeter-totter effect.
Well, here's another question. As far as our parks, do we have plans of ever doing like a wheelchair accessible swing?
Swing?
Yeah.
No plans. I don't know if that takes a whole different structure.
No, I mean, a lot of those oftentimes can be retrofitted, at least with maybe not a full chair swing. Those are usually independent, but you can get a transfer chair put in there that someone who's in a normal wheelchair can go into and swing, and you can usually do that on normal setups. So one that is kind of that you can roll up into is its own thing usually. So
Oh, just one more note is I am floored by how many people are using pickleball. Morning, noon, and night. I was out there at 7:30 the other day, and there was a huge group. And the evenings, it's really popular.
Well, the other night when we were watching TV, it was Major League Pickleball was on ESPN, so they have a major league now.
Yeah, CIP was on the agenda, and I went about the second access to Aspen since that was not in the next 5 years. However, and I don't remember the year, Brian, but the Ironwood extension is still on the list.
It's on the list. The Ironwood extension, it's a little complicated because it's a special assessment project.
Yeah, I got that from the comments.
Yeah, so we're still looking at it. You know, we got an updated cost estimate, it's 2.9 million now instead of 1.8 or something like that. So the residents on that street weren't happy with their assessments before, or potential assessments. They certainly won't be happy now. But we outlined to the council the whole process. We talked about it at the first meeting in June, whenever that was. And the consensus of the council is not to include Ironwood due to the nature of special assessments and the unknown potential legal and future costs associated with the city that we don't know yet. Plus, there may be some renewed conversations among developers.
Potentially buying and expand to the north.
If you remember, Justin
Oh.
Oakland owns his subdivision, Twin Rivers, and then you've got the Peterson property of about 6 or 7 acres on the north side
Yeah.
of Ironwood.
Yeah.
And then the new owner, Husitz, bought everything to the south. So there are some, hopefully we are encouraging discussion among the developers or property owners.
Is that where the church was gonna go or
Yes.
something? Oh, okay.
They are not going there anymore, that's my understanding. So hopefully, from the city standpoint, it would be much better if the developers, property owners would put that in, then we don't have to deal with special assessments. You know, we would certainly participate in the project, because there'd be turn lanes, we pay for oversizing, and sidewalks would be 8 or 10 feet wide instead of the normal 4 or 5. So we would certainly participate in the project. Part of that special assessments, we laid out 3 options for the council with varying amounts of area to be assessed. So we ended with, it's called an area assessment. So we would assess the street costs on an area basis, so all of the benefited properties, which we included all of Aspen Park. So we do that as a per acre assessment. So the city's share of the project increased fairly dramatically, because we've only got 66 feet, technically, for doing a front footage assessment. So the city's already said we will absorb more of the cost than we normally would on the project. But the assessments, the old assessments, I think they were running 35 to 40 grand for those 3 property owners. And the new cost estimates would be significantly higher. So we got that whole thing to deal with. And if we were going to do the special assessment process, we're talking at least 12 months. So every year we review the CIP. We take a look at actual revenue. Sales tax revenue is the big one. And that's been fairly strong. Last month it wasn't great, but it was still an increase. So we take a look at that and say, okay, we're getting $500,000 more a year in sales tax revenue. What can we do with that? And then start looking at projects.
If we're talking 850 parking spots going out that one way, is that doable? When we're talking baseball fields and buildings and.
They aren't, and that was just the whole square footage. Like I said, we're taking a look at the parking requirements in our zoning code, because we know that when wellness is fully built, that whole thing with a soccer field and a half and 6 basketball courts, they're not going to need 850 parking spaces. It's not going to be required. Same thing with hockey. You know, are they going to need a couple hundred parking spaces? No. So we're trying to look at those parking regs now and see what's going to be required. But we know that once there's movement and building on hockey and wellness or soccer, that Ironwood's probably going to be forced. And then, unfortunately, with the special assessment process, we can't assess any more than the increase in the property value to the properties. So what happens is if you assess somebody $50,000 and their value only goes up 25, they take us to court, and then we've got a court fight on our hands. And then if the judge decides to set those assessments aside, now we got to go back and look, okay, our financial projections when there were special assessments aren't valid anymore, because now we have to pick up more of the costs that we weren't anticipating.
So,
So what, in like, on situation, what can we do to continue to spur the conversation amongst the developers?
Good question.
I mean, I'll buy them all pizza. Sit down and have a conversation.
I'm not sure that would work with a couple of them.
beer and pizza then.
I'm not sure alcohol would be a good mix. We can talk after the meeting.
I think now, we still have on this year's plan to do the internal gravel street.
That's done.
That's done.
The gravel street and sewer and water is in, so the associations have access to the sewer and water.
Okay, so right now we have a road that's available then as any buildings go in or anything else happens down there. It's just, it can't go anywhere until Ironwood would get done. Hearing that there might be some development is very encouraging, because that was my whole thought during the meeting is, as soon as they started talking about special assessment, my mind immediately went, until somebody goes in and starts buying that property and building it up, nothing's gonna happen. So, I think that's where we're at.
Two questions. One, has there been any other talk, I know at one point they, I don't know if it was DOT or Minnehaha County or whatever, talked about Maple going all the way to the highway. Has there been any other discussion about that going forward?
Not really, other than we've been approached to help fund a grant application for that project again.
Because then we could take the gravel road straight to
Yeah.
meet up with that.
Yeah, and part of,
Granted, we don't own the land.
you know,
but-
all the property south of Aspen Park that's right for development, that I keep calling Hewitts guy, I need to learn his name. He'll connect that into Park Maple.
Right. Well, I was just thinking then we wouldn't have to deal with Ironwood. We could just possibly go straight down to Park Maple. And
Yeah,
that would be, it would be a longer trek,
And
but,
not our land either.
well, I mean, it would have to be in the development plan when they
Yeah.
did it. He would have to.
Yeah.
Yep, and the
I
plans have
mean-
always been or discussed that there would be a street coming up from Park Maple to connect in with Ironwood.
Yeah.
So Ironwood would
So
have to be
somewhere
built a
in
little bit. But yeah, that connection can be made too, and I think it will be at some point in time.
Okay.
Those connections are still, both are still.
Right. Yes, regardless of what.
And
There's
And then,
always-
is there any chance of going from our land?
East,
Yes.
not according to DOT.
So we still have those 3 lots.
We have those 3 lots.
But we can't get onto the highway.
They have told us, no, we're not gonna give you an access into the park if it's on the curve. So the sight lines aren't good. And I would venture to guess to build a driveway to meet sight lines in elevation, because you're coming up as well, and you got the curve. We'd have to bring in more fill than, it would be a very expensive driveway. Let's put it that way. Yeah, no, DOT has been very emphatic, no, we're not gonna give you a new access on the split road.
Is it just because it's on the curve?
That and sight lines. It's DOT, they don't have to do anything. God, railroads, DOT.
And, you know, if there was some other way that we could get away from the special assessment and all the court costs and stuff like that by still gaining.
That was one of the
that
reasons why we
seconds.
actually bought those 3 lots, was to gain access to Split Rock, and then DOT kind of blew that one on.
Can we look at selling those lots?
We can, I think once we got a good idea of what's happening in Aspen.
Okay.
We may need to protrude into those 3 lots.
Yeah.
Eventually,
Yeah.
or possibly, depending on what the acreage needs are. But once Aspen's developed, we can take a look at selling those lots. I mean, Seacog just bought that parcel east of Doppenberg's, or north of Doppenberg's, just south of our 3 lots. They're putting in a house.
So someday there'll be a walk along there though too, and we may want to use those lots just for trail connection.
Well, we've got that other lot that's north, where the water line runs through too. We got 60 feet there.
Multiple's better, Brian.
And we may need an outlet for storm at some point in time.
For sure. All right, thank you, Al, for attending that and kind of
He didn't stay for the whole meeting.
watching, well,
I stayed till about second to last thing on the agenda, so that's
wow, busted. All right, last item, tree board items.
Not much there. We did go around yesterday and today and marked all the ash trees for this year's ash tree program. It's, south, 5th, 6th, 7th area, the rest of Rushmore and Sylvan Circle, and then kind of everything from north of Holly, west of Split Rock, basically up to Tallgrass Park. I don't know what you call that area.
So after this session,
Like up to the tennis courts, in the tennis courts in that area?
yeah, after this session, how many more sections do we have?
I don't think we're expected to be done until 29 or 30.
Is it that long?
Yep, because I think after this one is then everything west of Tallgrass. And then after that, we broke up south of Casey's into 3 or 4.
Okay, I was thinking it was
Just
only
because of
5
how many
years, but
trees.
yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, Richland Park still. You know, once we get south of Casey's, a couple of those years, it's like 2 streets, and that's the year because it's just giant ash trees everywhere.
Have we seen much more activity?
Some of them over there are looking bad.
like almost dead.
Some are possibly, yeah, so I don't know what to say. If trees way down there start to,
No official
no,
recognition.
we haven't looked into it, no one's had their own tree checked or anything like that either, but, you know, I don't wanna jinx it, but at some point we might have our hand forced one way or the other, whether we want to or not down the road here shortly, so just have to keep that in mind.
All right. Next meeting would be July 19th. Is that correct? Everyone okay with 5:15?
5:15, yeah.
All right, July 19th, 5:15. Any other communication for the good of the group? No? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.